Shalom. I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Ha-Rakah Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles of Great Millstone for teaching us this truth, and also want to acknowledge all the Akyam pushing this truth with sincerity in the streets of Babylon and also on these videos. Alright, so I've been wanting to go in on this lesson through the Spirit for a couple of days, but we're going to go to Genesis 25 and just get in on the story about Jacob and Esau. Alright, so we'll start at 19. And it says, "And these are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham begat Isaac. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to wife, the daughter of Bethuel, and the Syrian of Padan Aram, the sister to Laban the Syrian. And Isaac entreated Yahweh for his wife because she was barren, and the Lord was entreated of him. Rebekah his wife conceived." And let's see. I'm gonna actually look up that word entreated. Okay, so to ask a person earnestly, beseech, implore, beg, or to ask earnestly. Okay, so you get the better understanding when you go into these words. So basically, Isaac was begging for the Lord, earnestly, so that she could have children. So, when you think about that, hey, Isaac was begging for these two babies, that became Jacob and Esau. Verse 22. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it be so, why am I thus?" And she went to inquire of Yahweh. Alright, so she was struggling with her pregnancy, and she said, if this is a blessing, why do I feel this way? That was her question to Yahweh. Rebekah was struggling because the two boys were, fighting in the womb, Jacob and Esau. Alright, the so-called white man, the Edomite, and the so-called Negro, was struggling in the womb from the beginning, because you didn't have the Latinos yet, because that came about through when Jacob started, dealing with the heathen women, Verse 23. It says, "And Yahweh said unto her, Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger." All right, because Jacob was the younger, so in the kingdom, Yahweh ordained it where Esau is going to serve Jacob. All right, so we know that's what it is, because these verses tell us that. These people seem to they can't understand that white people have to go into slavery. They don't believe that. Well, they do have to go into slavery, because it says that the elder shall serve the younger. All right, so we're coming upon that time in these last days that the elder is going to serve the younger. Who was older? Esau was older. All right, verse 24. "And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. See, so they're still twins, but hey, Esau has broken the covenant, the brotherly covenant, and he's had a perpetual hatred toward his brother. All right. So, let me go to that real quick. Well, let me keep reading this, and I'll bring that out. No, actually, let me go to it because then I'll forget. Let's see. Let's try Ezekiel 35 and 5. I think this is it. Yeah. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. All right. And if we jump to the top of this, it's talking about Mount Seir, verse 3. And say unto it, thus saith the Lord Yahweh, behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out mine hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. Then we got to go to Genesis 36 and 6 to find out who Mount Seir is, right? Wait. Oh, 8, not 6. It says, Thus dwell Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. You see? So Esau is Edom. All right, and this Mount Seir is where he dwelt. Let's go back to Genesis 25. We're at verse 21. Actually, we're at verse 24. But let's read it. Genesis 25:24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. All right, and the word Esau means wasted away. The word Edom means red. All right, but he wasn't called Edom at this point. We're going to read on in this chapter and show you why he got the name Edom. All right, but let's read this real quick. 25. I'm going to read it again. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. All right, because so-called white people, when they're born, they appear red because they lack melanin in their skin. They have no pigment, so the blood shows through their skin when they're babies. This was the first baby to ever look like this, all right, that was born with leprosy, all right, because leprosy is white skin. That's literally what leprosy is, all right, and we'll go in on that too. Let me see. But anyway, Esau was born red because he had a lack of pigment, because he had basically like the white skin, the transparent skin. All right. So when we go to, let's go to Numbers to prove 12:1. Let's see. Excuse me. Let me see. Oh, verse 10. Numbers 12 and 10. It says, because this is dealing with a chariot, which is the cloud, in verse Numbers 12 and 10. I'm going to read it. Well, let's restart at 9. Because Yahweh was pissed off when he put this leprosy on Miriam, who was Aaron's sister. And let's read it. 12 and 9. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against him, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle. What do you think that cloud is? It's a chariot, the UFO, all right? So-called UFO. And behold, Miriam, verse 10, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. So what did it say? White as snow. Her skin appeared white, like a white person, so-called white person, right? So when we go back to Esau in Genesis, that's why his he looked red, because he was his blood was showing right through his transparent skin. These so-called white people, when they're born, they look red, and even when they get older, when they're out in the sun, it turns them red. You know, the so-called white man is not white; he's red. That's why his name is Edom. That's why he's an Edomite. The word Edom means red. All right. So now I'm going to go to 25, and we'll go to verse 25, and read that again. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. After that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. So Isaac was 60 years old when he had the twins, Jacob and Esau. All right, and there's a reason why Jacob was holding on to the heel of Esau. All right, because it's symbolic to the heaven and the rulership. Right now we're in Esau's heaven. We're in Esau's rulership. That's why the symbolism in this verse deals with Jacob holding on to the heel, because it's the transition. And I'm going to go to 2nd Esdras to explain that better. 2nd Esdras, and we're going to chapter 6, and we're going to go to verse 8. It says, And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. So you see, so when we go back to, this is telling you, hey, Esau's the end of the world. When his kingdom ends, Jacob's follows. That's why Esau was born first, and Jacob was holding on to his heel, like it shows you in verse 8, you know. Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau, because that's symbolic. He's going to get the kingdom after Esau is the end of the world. You see? Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. We get the rulership, all right? We get the rulership because of this verse, you know? And because that's what it means. Let's see. All right, so, and we read about Jacob going to be serving the younger, the elder serving the younger, right? Well, let's go to that real quick. We just read it. I'm going to go to it one more time. Where was it? Verse 23. This is the verse 23. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. All right? And who is stronger in physicality? You know, so-called Negroes are much stronger than so-called white people. All right? That's evident in everything, in sports, in boxing, in MMA, in basically everything. Track, basketball, football, baseball. You name the sport, Jake is dominating the sport, all right? Whether it be a Northern Kingdom Latino, so-called Latino, or a Southern Kingdom, so-called Negro, you know? Our people are stronger, right? And that's just fact, you know? But it says the elder shall serve the younger at the end of 23. So now let's look at what else is in store for Esau, Edom. Because we just read Esau will serve Jacob. The elder will serve the younger. So now we go to Revelation 13 and verse 10. And then we read, He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. All right. So we know who led who into captivity. Esau led Jacob into captivity. Esau is got us in captivity right now. All right. He's given him the Greek, the Roman, and the American captivity. You know. So he that leadeth in captivity has got to go into captivity, according to verse 10. All right. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Well, what's his blessing? His blessing is the sword, you know. Let's get it. Genesis 27 and 40. And by the sword shalt thou live, and shalt thou serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, The days of mourning for my father are at hand, and then I will slay my brother. So you see, the so-called white man, he's always wanted to kill so-called Negroes. All right, that's why he still does it in the streets of Babylon, America. You know, because this is their nature. All right, you know, and the Bible is telling you this, so you know you can't sit there and make excuses for Esau. All right, go back to Genesis 25. And I'm on verse 25. I'll read it again. I'm sorry. Yeah, and it says he's hairy. You know, the so-called white man's hairy. You know, that's why they endorse shaving and shavers all the time. You see shaving commercials. You know, all the time. You know, verse 26. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel. So you see, it tells you Jacob grabbed his heel, but it didn't even describe Jacob. And why not? Because he was just like everybody else at that time on the earth. You know, he wasn't red like Esau. They described Esau because he was different, all right? He wasn't like all the other Israelites, you know, and at that time, we weren't Israelites. We were the sons of God. You know, but he's the son of perdition, you know. He went off to the left side, you know. He's wicked. So, you know, the son of perdition went off, but Jacob also went off. But, you know, we're going to keep reading. Yahweh had always chose Jacob, and he always does to this day, all right? Verse 26 still. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob, and Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. So we read about that, how in Esdras, how Esau's the end of the world. That's what that means, by him grabbing onto his heel. Esau is the end of the world, transitioning into the kingdom, all right? The beginning of it that followeth, it said in Esdras, all right? In verse 27, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. All right, that's why you so-called Negroes, you're okay just chilling. But these so-called Latinos, you know, we could just chill at their house. What do the Gadites have? The so-called Native Americans, they had tents, you know. They didn't have houses, you know, like Esau brought that to the Americas, you know. But Esau's obviously a cunning hunter. If you look at their hunting magazines, Esau's on every single cover. You know, that's his nature, man. He's bloodthirsty. He not only does he hunt animals, he hunts the Israelites, you know. They hide in the streets just to pull you over and now kill you, you know. That's Esau Edom, man. That's his nature. Verse 28. And Isaac loved Esau, but he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. All right. remember, Isaac was Yahawashi, the regeneration. So Yahawashi, he loved Esau to give him that blessing, as Isaac, which was the sword that we read about. And it says here Isaac loved him because he loved his meat, the meat that he killed. Isaac loved eating barbecue, basically. And Rebecca loved Jacob, it says in 28. And Yahweh put the spirit on both of them to feel that way about each son, because that's how he was able to deceive. I'm talking about Jacob. He was able to deceive Isaac when he inherited the blessing, which was sold to Jacob, not stolen. He didn't steal the birthright. He bought it. Esau sold his birthright. We read it. Esau despised his birthright. All right. So where are we at? Let's see. Verse 29. And Jacob sowed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and let me read that over. And Jacob sowed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. So Jacob was making some soup. That's what pottage is, like stew. Esau came from the field that day. Let's read it. And Esau said to Jacob, "Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint." Therefore his name was called Edom. So you see, that's why he's called Edom, because Edom means red, because he ate the red pottage. When you go into red pottage, it means that his soup was not cooked. It wasn't ready yet, But Edomites, they don't care, man. They want to eat that bloody meat. This is why you see when they do hunt, in their pictures, in their hunting pictures, I've seen Edomites have their daughters, little girls, like 10, 12, 13-year-olds, biting into a heart of a deer or a moose or whatever they killed, a buck, they be biting into them hearts and stuff. That's one of their traditions. In verse 31, and Jacob said, "Sell me this day thy birthright." And Esau said, "Behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?" And so back then Esau was like, "Man, I don't need my birthright, man. What is this going to do to me? I'm about to die." Because he's carnal, right? He's not thinking about spiritual things. This is Esau's spirit even on the earth right now, today. These Edomites, they're not very spiritual, man. This is their kingdom. So everything on this kingdom, it affects their emotions, Like they're not willing to wait for the food to be cooked if they're hungry. They're not willing to, they'll become very rude with you, Israelites, without giving a shit about what you think, That's the nature of Esau. And we know that just by, living in this kingdom. Esau he's got his spirit's off, man. Verse 32, and Esau said, "Behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?" And Jacob said, "Swear to me this day." And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. All right, so let's go to a precept in Hebrews, because he sold that thing. He didn't, Jacob didn't steal it. Some people will tell you that Jacob stole the birthright, but no, he bought it. He bought it from his Edomite brother that didn't give a shit about the birthright. And now he's trying to, take the birthright back, Hebrews verse 12:16. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. And profane means out of the church, meaning he didn't give a shit about the truth. He didn't give a shit about the birthright. He didn't give a shit about the blessing that would have been. Why? Because he's carnal. He's not spiritual. He's like, have my birthright. Give me that one morsel of meat. That red meat at that. That's when he got his nickname Edom. But go back to Genesis 25 and 30, because that's literally where he, let me just read it again at verse 30. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. So let's jump down to, we'll read 33 again. And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So the so-called white man despised being the blessed child, the blessed son. No, he wanted to be profane, it said in Hebrews. He's profane, meaning out of the church, meaning he's not holy, unholy. He's the unholy one. He's the wicked, all right? Since I brought it up real quick, let me go to that. Malachi 4:1. Oh, my bad. Malachi 1:4. This is Esau, Edom. We already established that. It says, whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom Yahweh hath the indignation forever. Right? So, literally, Edom is the wicked, the border of wickedness, the people who Yahweh, who God has indignation forever. Let's look up indignation, because we got to look all these words up to show people. All right, let's read it. Indignation definition. It says anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. Has not the so-called white man been unfair to the Israelites? This is why it's an indignation that it says in that verse. All right, let's go back to it. The last part, the very last sentence, Malachi 4:1. The people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So Yahweh knows that this Edomite is the wicked one, and he calls him the border of wickedness. And he also knows that he has been unfair to, the apple of the Lord's eye, Like, literally, the so-called white man is so cursed that it's just not even funny, man. Let's see if I can find this verse. Let's just... Because the so-called white man is basically oppressing the sons of Israel. All right, so let's go to Psalm 17:8. It says, keep me as the apple of the eye, hide me under the shadow of thy wings. And this is King David, who was an Israelite, all right? Because, hey, you see a prayer of David on verse 1. So when he comes down here to verse 8, he says, keep me as the apple of the eye. And really, it's the elect are the apple of the eye, the prophets. But they're all Israelites. So, when we go back to that Malachi 1:4, and the end of it, it says, the people against whom Yahweh hath indignation forever. Indignation, we looked it up, it says anger or annoyance provoked by what is perceived as unfair treatment. And that's what Yahweh is anger and annoyed by Esau, because of the unfair treatment he's given the Israelites. That's why he has to serve his younger brother, that we read that in the Bible, So with that, I want to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Ha-Rakah Kodash. Double honors goes out to the elder apostles, a great millstone, for teaching us this truth. Also want to acknowledge all the Akyam who are pushing this truth with sincerity in Babylon, America, on the streets, and also on these videos All right, shalom to the elect, and may you endure to the end.